One of the first press cars we had since moving our operation to Quebec was the Cadillac Escalade. The very first Escalade rolled off the assembly line in Arlington, Texas on the 8th of February 1998, and VIN 001 can be seen today at the GM Heritage Center in Sterling Heights, Michigan. Over 20 years of innovation has helped solidify the Escalade nameplate as the leader in the full-size luxury SUV market here in North America. Our spotlight is on this 2020 Cadillac Escalade Sport Edition. Now, we did go over the Escalade in depth in 2018. However, I looked back at that video and we really should redo it. So we're going to be going over absolutely everything you need to know about the final year of production for the 4th generation Escalade. So we're finishing up 2019, and it's great because this is the second full year that we've been doing new cars every single week here on Test Drive. And it's also great because we started off 2018 with the Escalade. Now we're more or less finishing off 2019 with it again, and I'm really happy to have it. I love this car. The one that we did last year, so popular, people love it, despite the fact that the video is not very good. I watched it like I usually do, especially when we're looking at a competing vehicle to something. If we've already done it, I will always go back and watch those episodes, and my God, not very good. And even the episode we did on the Lincoln Navigator, which I had to rewatch in order to do this, terrible by today's standards. So thank you for watching this one. I hope it'll be just as popular, but let's talk about this. This will be the final 4th generation Escalade available. The rumor was the 2020 was going to be all new, but GM has pushed it back a little bit. So this 2020 will be the last one for this generation. Now in 2019, GM offered a new Sport Edition on the luxury, premium luxury, and platinum trims like ours here. It adds a gloss black front grille, grille header, lower grille surround, a lower fascia trim, body side molding, and the rear applique. All of it is blacked out, much like a BMW Shadowline trim. Looks fantastic in this black paint. Also adds the 22-inch 12-spoke alloy rims in midnight silver finish. Looks great with this very dark-looking vehicle. And it was only available on 3 different paint colors: Red Passion Tint Coat, Satin Steel Metallic, and Black Raven, like this one here. That package was $3,395 Canadian. Quite a bit. I don't know if you really need it. I mean, this has pushed up the MSRP almost $8,000 from the one that we drove last year, so definitely a lot more pricier. So it's up to you if you really want that, but you can get it on the 2019 or 2020 models. The other factory option installed on this vehicle is for $4,415. They are the performance front brakes. They add red Brembo 6-piston front calipers with 410 by 32 millimeter Duralife rotors. Not only does the front brakes, they're not carbon ceramic. It's about half the price of the carbon ceramic brakes we had on the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, but that covered both the front and the back. So again, do you need it for $4,400? Probably not. The braking power on this is certainly better than it was on the one that we drove last year, but I think most people are going to skip that option, though I do like the look of it. I mean, that's the thing. Image is everything, just like the title of this episode. This isn't the best full-size SUV out there. In fact, we talked about that at great length when we did the 2018 Lincoln Navigator. We said the Escalade is not the best. It doesn't offer the best power or the best luxury or the best interior space or comfort, but it sells because of that name. People recognize the name Escalade and they know that it represents something. This is almost at the same level as the Mercedes G-Wagon in terms of exclusivity and overall street cred and street presence. Not the best vehicle, but it certainly turns heads. Now, as I mentioned, our 2018 episode on the Escalade is one of the most popular episodes we've done. In fact, I think it is the most popular single vehicle we've done on Test Drive to date. Still, every month we have a lot of people looking for it, so I'm hoping that the interest in this 2020 will be just as good, especially in the black paint. But there's some important things to note. If you're looking at a 2020 model year, even though we did not feature a 2019, you can assume that it's about the same as the 2018. And even the 2020, there's very little that's changed. The biggest thing you actually lose out on are the rear DVD headrests. Before, they came on the Platinum trim, as well as the 3rd screen on the roof liner of the vehicle. Now they've removed those DVD headrests. They are a dealer installed option, and you have to contact the dealer for the price. This vehicle does have it, but we talked about that in depth on that episode. Those 2 DVD screens don't communicate with the main system in the center, so you can watch essentially 3 different movies if you wanted to, but for the most part, probably not as useful. And then we talked about it again with the Lincoln Navigator, where that system doesn't even have physical disc-based media. You have to use streamable or USB devices. So you can option it if you want. Essentially, the price has gone down $1,297 Canadian from last year because you lose out on those DVD headrests. Then you're probably looking at about $2,200 to get them back. So if you really want them, the 2020 will probably cost you more than it did last year. But truthfully, you're probably not buying the Escalade because you want rear DVD headrests. You want it for the power. 6.2-liter V8 engine producing 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, uses a 10-speed automatic transmission, and it is a rear-wheel drive vehicle with a four-wheel drive system. Now, the 4th generation Escalade has been in production since 2015. This will be the final year of production for the 4th generation, and it's good. A lot of people say that this is dated, and I'll agree with that, especially after driving more than 100 vehicles since the last time we drove the Escalade. I can tell you that my opinion on it has changed a little bit since it was back in January of 2018. Now, one of the major reasons for that is because we've driven the Lincoln Navigator. We drove that a few months after the Escalade, which has more power, has more upscale luxury features, and more drive modes to give you a better SUV experience, whether it's slippery road conditions or you want to take it off-road or even rock climbing. There's a lot more control on the Lincoln Navigator. But again, it comes down to how it looks on the road. Do people look at a Navigator the same way they look at an Escalade? Do people look at an Escalade the same way they look at a Mercedes GLS? I'd say no. People look at this way more than any other vehicle in this segment, with the exception of something like the Land Rover Range Rover SV Autobiography, but that is almost double the price of this, and you don't see them here in Canada that often. Now, most will argue that the Navigator is the most direct competitor to this. They both offer long wheelbase versions. They're both about the same price, and they're both built in the United States. Now, the Navigator has a lower price and better four-wheel drive modes, as we mentioned. We really did like the Navigator, despite the build quality issues that we had with it. And then even with the 2018 Cadillac, we weren't completely sold on the interior design, the materials they used, along with the infotainment system. And then after driving both of them, we've really come to the realization that the second row, which is where people would be sitting if they were being driven in this vehicle, just doesn't live up to what the Germans are doing, or even some of the new competitors in this larger market space, like the Kia Telluride or Hyundai Palisade. They offer more features in that second row than a $120,000 SUV. So for the next generation, Cadillac will need to do a lot more. And then also, if you take a look at something like the BMW X7 and the Mercedes GLS, I mean, they just take it to a completely different level. And then once again, you add on even more to the price, you'd be looking at that Range Rover SV Autobiography. So you can continue to go up in price. In North America, though, something like the Cadillac Escalade still has that brand recognition and dominance in the marketplace. And it almost feels like Cadillac doesn't bother competing anymore. They know they will continue to sell these vehicles despite not really having to do anything with them. And that's the thing. I mean, when you look back at the video we did last year on this, we did go over it in depth. We talked about the headlights, the design, the trunk, everything that you really needed to know about the Escalade. We didn't do a great job doing it, but it still was there. And I mean, this car still does have a lot going for it. The LED headlights are great. The cornering lamps work. Yes, it would be nice if they were adaptive, maybe even LED turn signals, considering how expensive this vehicle is. Maybe LED license plate lights. Those are still halogen for a $120,000 vehicle. So yeah, it's showing its age, but it's still bold and commanding, but that overhaul is much needed. Now, the rumors are it'll look a lot like the new XT6 that was introduced earlier this year, both inside and out. Now, I've taken a look at it. It's not a bad looking vehicle, but some say that it feels like it was a rush job just to get the Cadillac badge on there. The interior as well, not necessarily anything different that we've seen from other vehicles in Cadillac, which is good if they want to compete with Lincoln. But if they really want to go upscale and take on the Germans, I feel they're going to have to do more. Now, the 5th generation will be based on that same T1XX full-size pickup truck platform that we saw earlier in 2019 with the new Silverado and GMC Sierras. Technology will have to be something that Cadillac focuses on. We do like their infotainment system found on the newer vehicles, but still, it's not really a rival of BMW's iDrive or the new Mercedes-Benz user experience. So they will have to do more in that regard. They do need to use the bigger HUD we've seen on the pickup trucks. It should come with the new updated rear view monitor system with better resolution and control for it. But really, the Escalade will need to focus on proper luxury and that second row, as again, it falls short. You have a single zone for the second row, as well as the back row. It's all one shared unit, as well as only heated seats. We should see heated and ventilated seats, even massaging seats, especially at this price. You get that with a 7 Series. Why do you not get it with the Escalade? But I'm sure you've already been able to ascertain that this will be a much more critical expose of the 4th generation Escalade. Let's take it on the road now, talk about how it handles, performs, and drives, and everything else that we like about it and dislike about it almost 2 years after the first time we drove it. You know, I really love driving the Escalade, even though this thing is dated and whatever you want to say about it, it's not necessarily the best either if you compare it directly with the Lincoln Navigator, as we talked about last year. Falls a little short, but that's just how technology works. It's how advancement works in this sort of segment. You know, you're always going to have one coming out before the other one. So, for example, last year the Lincoln Navigator came out, so it was the new hot dog on the market. This will be getting a refresh next year, so it will be the new hot dog and have more features. But I really do hope that Cadillac spends some time and actually invests in this, because right now I don't feel that Cadillac wants to be overly competitive, and that is going to be a problem for them because Lincoln is firing on all cylinders right now. They are coming out with some fantastic vehicles. And we have had our small concerns with some of their vehicles that we've tested, but for the most part, you get a lot of car, and they are targeting the Germans in terms of quality and luxury, not necessarily sportiness, but that's fine. Cadillac can maybe come in and do that. Not a Cadillac Escalade V, that'd be very silly, but I think that the next generation will be a critical change for Cadillac to show the world that they will compete with more than just nobody, and I hope that it'll do well. But let's not talk about what could be with the next generation Escalade. Let's talk about what is with this 2020, because people are still going to be buying it today, and even into 2020, if a new one is announced, they will still be selling these ones to people who want something immediately and don't want to wait. And there's still a lot of good going on with this vehicle. I mean, I love driving it. Is it a truck-like experience? Absolutely. It doesn't feel any different really than something like the GMC Sierra Denali that we featured earlier in 2019. The interior here is a little bit more luxurious, and obviously it's laid out quite a bit differently with the leather all over the place and plastic trim and the wood stuff, and it still feels like last year's Cadillac when we featured the 2018 because it hasn't changed much. I mean, really, I talked about the changes on it. The engine's the same, transmission's the same, magnetic ride system's the same, everything's all there, so it makes sense that it should feel pretty good. And even though I've changed quite a bit over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, because I've driven so many cars, I still do like the Escalade. I still would buy one if I had a silly amount of money and I didn't know what to do with it, because you do get it topped out at 116, 118,000. You can get the long wheelbase version, which the only other two vehicles I know of that you can get a long wheelbase in the full-size segment are the Lincoln Navigator and the Range Rover Land Rover, and that's a very expensive vehicle. So if you need more space, this is kind of it. And there's no doubt about it, here in North America, the Escalade still has that commanding road presence. It just doesn't feel the same when you're seeing a Navigator on the road or a Mercedes GLS. Things like that are really nice, but it's not an Escalade, and that's the whole point when it comes to image, which is the theme of this episode. Image truly is everything when it comes to a vehicle like this, and I'm telling you that I have more people looking at me in this vehicle than I have in most of the other vehicles we've driven, especially something like that Alfa Romeo Stelvio, which really does turn heads. This just does it a little bit more because it's not a car that you see all the time. And I've actually been surprised. I haven't seen any other vehicles like this here. I saw one Chevy Tahoe yesterday. That's it. No other vehicles that share this platform that I have seen since picking this up. And I've done like 700 kilometers already as of filming this. That's part of the reason why you buy this. I mean, the Escalade still sells incredibly well. Even for 2019, it is still the second most popular vehicle in Cadillac's portfolio, at least according to US sales data. The XT5 is their most popular, and then behind it is the XT4. So more people want this bigger vehicle over the smaller XT4. And I can see why. I mean, you get a lot with this. The space is great. Massaging seats work very well. There is good comfort in here. Yeah, middle row is pretty light, as we talked about, but it comes down to how it feels on the road and what you feel on the road. And I'm telling you, there really isn't anything else that feels quite like an Escalade in terms of that brand, in terms of that name recognition. People see you show up, you know they're looking at you. I'm telling you right now, there's really nothing else out there. But I am so happy that we've got it in the middle of fall instead of the winter, because I can actually drive it and enjoy it. I don't have to keep it in snow mode or touring mode. I have it in sport mode most of the time, And it doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, it's not like it's holding the gears up to 6,000 RPM. It just makes the throttle response a little bit better, along with the transmission shifts just a little bit later. And it's like 500 RPMs more that'll hold on to it. So it's not a big difference, but it makes a bit of a difference if you're driving it a little harder than you should. The exhaust doesn't change at all. It's still a very comfortable vehicle and pretty quiet on the road. I mean, it makes some noise, and that's the whole point of buying a V8, is you can hear it going, and I do like it. Much nicer experience than you can get with GM's pickup trucks, and that's the whole point, right? This is meant to be a Cadillac, not necessarily the rough and tough GMC or Chevrolet. But why do you buy an Escalade? That's the question, right? I mean, there is a lot of choice. There's not a ton of choice, but there's a lot. The Germans each have something, except for Audi. There's really nothing in the segment. I wouldn't consider the Q7 to be as big as something like a GLS or an X7. But you do have choice. Yeah, it's an expensive vehicle. There's no doubt about it. Making the monthly payments on something like this is going to cost a lot. But if you're in the market for an Escalade, it probably won't matter to you in the first place. If you know you can afford one, you can afford it. You can also afford the gas too, which is what you need. You need premium fuel with this bad boy, and it cost me about $85 to fill it up from 1/4 of a tank left, so it will cost you quite a bit, but that's to be expected. But you do get a lot for it. I'm always happy in it, and that's the thing, I'm happy with it, but I know that there's something better, but I still would take this. It's so weird. I mean, like, I know that the Navigator is a better vehicle almost in every single way, but I mean, something about this. I just like when people look at me and give me those cut eye, like, you drive an Escalade. Like, not like, what a terrible choice, but, you know, they just kind of resent you because you got more money. And that's pretty much the reason why I would take this over the competition, is just because of that image, just because what this car represents here in North America. You can't get that with any other vehicle. It just doesn't exist. Cadillac has such a fantastic brand recognition with this that they'd be silly to do anything other than make it fantastic, which is why we're really hoping the next generation is going to be great, because it should be. It doesn't have to be. Unfortunately, for us who like these vehicles, Cadillac doesn't really need to compete because people will still buy it. But it'd be nice for them. They should make the next Escalade outstanding. They really can compete if they want to. The CT6 is an example of that. That car was really, really good. They just need to apply that same thing here.
Last year, we didn't have our test circuit set up for either the 2018 Escalade or Navigator, but we'll go over the test data for this 2020. The Escalade completed our 100-kilometer test loop in 11.3 liters per 100 kilometers, or 20.8 US miles per gallon in touring mode. Now, we did spend the rest of our 863-kilometer week mostly in sport mode with a lot of in-town driving, which pulled our overall fuel economy down to 15.4 liters per 100 kilometers, or 15.3 mpg. Not bad overall, but we'll have a better idea once we drive the Navigator again, along with some of the other large luxury SUVs in the segment. But let's talk about what we ultimately liked and disliked about this 2020 Cadillac Escalade Platinum. Mostly it carries over from the previous model we drove, with the commanding street presence being a top like for us, along with the power from that naturally aspirated V8 engine, GM's magnetic ride control, and overall seat comfort with massage. Finally, the sport trim is a nice addition to this generation, giving buyers a bit of extra choice for styling when it comes to Cadillac's largest vehicle. And our list of dislike follows last year as well. The second row features and amenities are light by comparison to the direct competition from Germany, but also larger crossovers like the Kia Telluride offer adjustable horizontal seat positioning, ventilated seats, and window sunshades. The third row on the Escalade short wheelbase is also very tight, without much legroom for anyone over 5 foot. The interior is starting to show its age, and Cadillac will have to go above and beyond with the next generation in order to bring it up to speed with the BMW X7 or Mercedes GLS. Finally, the 360-degree cameras were lower quality than a lot of the other systems we've tested in this price point, but we are hopeful again for better equipment come 2021. The Escalade is still a great American luxury SUV with an unbeatable nameplate brand. General Motors has the potential to take Cadillac to the next level by focusing on proper luxury features instead of fluff and filler to give the appearance of luxury. there's tremendous opportunity to make the Escalade a proper competitor to the Germans rather than just play catch-up with Lincoln. The next generation Escalade will ultimately determine the fate of this 2020. If it's great, buyers won't be as interested in this, giving buyers a chance to score a deal. But if the next Escalade is underwhelming, this generation might go on to be the best GM will have ever made. Let us know in the comments below with your opinion on this American luxury behemoth and what you'll think we'll be seeing come 2021 in the very near future.